Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're cutting through the noise, really digging into a fundamental human truth. Why does success often feel, well, temporary?
Yeah.
And why is it so hard just to appreciate what you actually have?
That's a huge question.
Yeah. So our mission today is to understand the psychology behind comparison, how it drives us to spend wastefully, and maybe figure out what true financial independence really looks like. Let's start with something pretty incredible, the moon landing. I mean, one of the most amazing human feats ever, right?
Absolutely. Hard to top.
You've got Buzz Aldrin, second human being ever to step onto another celestial body. I mean, if that isn't success, what is? You'd think that would bring like a profound, lifelong satisfaction.
You would hope so, wouldn't you? But Michael Collins, another astronaut on that mission, known for being pretty observant.
Yeah.
He had this fascinating take on Aldrin's mindset later on. Collins apparently said something like, I think Buzz resents not being first on the moon more than he appreciates being second.
Wow. That's brutal. But it perfectly captures the problem, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's like the constant presence of something better just steals the joy from achieving something great. Envy makes it almost impossible to feel good about your own wins because success immediately gets measured against someone else.
It's the great human curse, you could say.
Yeah.
We stop asking, are my things nice?
Mm-hmm.
And start asking, are my things nicer than their things? We're constantly outsourcing our own happiness benchmark to strangers, often. So we really need to figure out that line. When does comparison motivate us in a healthy way? And when does it just become destructive?
Okay, so let's unpack why we do this. Why is comparison such a stubborn, natural drive? Is it just a modern capitalist thing, or is it deeper biological?
Oh, it's deep-seated. Look, life, whether you're talking economics, society, even biology, it's structured around competition, competing for limited resources.
Like what? Money,
time, attention. Yeah, all limited. So we're kind of hardwired to look around, see where we stand, measure our position relative to others.
I think I remember reading about a biological principle that covers this, something about competition.
Absolutely. It's often called the competitive exclusion principle. Russian biologist Georgy Gause talked about it.
Right.
Basically, if two species are competing for the exact same limited resource in the exact same way, well, they can't coexist forever. One eventually outcompetes the other.
So that feeling of always looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, that pressure, that drive based on what others have, it's kind of baked into the system. It's natural in a sense.
But hang on, isn't competition good sometimes? Doesn't it drive innovation and progress? How do we tell when comparing ourselves switches from being like a helpful motivator to just mental torture?
That is the absolute critical difference. Being motivated by someone else's success, seeing what they have as, let's say, effective advertising for possibilities you might want, that can be productive.
Okay.
But envious comparison, that's different. That's internalizing the dissatisfaction. It's like signing a contract to be miserable, and it serves zero purpose except making you feel bad about where you are right now.
This sounds exactly like that trap C.S. Lewis wrote about years ago. The Inner Ring.
It really does. Lewis's essay, The Inner Ring, honestly, it should be required reading on this topic.
Yeah.
He described life as this series of social rings. And the desire is always, always to break into the next, more exclusive level. When you're outside, looking in, it seems like paradise.
Right.
But once you actually get inside, you realize, you're not suddenly happy. And your attention, it immediately shifts to the next ring up. The one you're now outside of again.
It's basically a guaranteed recipe for constant disappointment. Because the goal isn't the thing itself, it's the feeling of being exclusive.
Precisely. And you see this play out all the time, even with people who seem to have totally won the status game.
Got an example?
Yeah. Take the entrepreneur Josh Kushner. He told a story once about a wealthy friend taking him courtside to a Knicks game. Kushner was just blown away, right? Thinking, wow, this is astounding.
As you would be.
But his friend immediately scans the area, looks maybe 5 seats over, and just says, my seats are good, but that guy's seats are better. Instantly, the goalpost just shifted.
And that's the whole tragedy of chasing status, isn't it? It's unwinnable because status is always a moving target.
Yeah.
What feels unique and enviable today
Becomes common tomorrow.
Yeah.
Available, and therefore kind of bland.
Right.
We can actually track this trickle down of aspiration pretty clearly. Kevin Kelly pointed this out. If you want to know what lower income groups will aspire to later, just look at what higher income groups exclusively enjoy today.
Right. Like, think about things we consider pretty normal now. Owning stocks. In 1929, what, like 5% of Americans owned stocks?
Something like that, yeah. Tiny fraction.
Today, it's closer to 60%, or European vacations, college degrees. Even stuff like having 2 cars or granite countertops. These were once signs of real high status.
Exactly. And now they're common aspirational goals.
Yeah.
The problem is status is fundamentally tied to exclusivity. Once the masses get it, it just stops being high status. It becomes mundane. There was even that anecdote Rob Henderson shared about Yale students. They loved the musical Hamilton, right? Couldn't get enough of it until it came out on Disney Plus for everyone to see. Then, suddenly, they found it kind of boring.
Oh, come on. Really?
Apparently, the value wasn't just the play itself. It was the scarcity, the exclusivity of having seen it.
Okay, so if the status game is this social rat race with a finish line that keeps moving further away,
Yeah.
how do you possibly win?
You stop running.
You just opt out.
You stop playing that specific game. Like we said, being jealous of what others have. That's basically outsourcing your critical thinking, your happiness to complete strangers.
It's the ultimate lack of intellectual independence then.
It really is. If the whole point of having money is supposed to be buying control over your own life, comparison does the exact opposite. It anchors your expectations to other people, which pretty much guarantees you'll never be satisfied with the control you do have.
Okay, so if status isn't the real measure of wealth, what is? If we strip away the fancy cars and the big houses and all the performance, what defines real affluence?
True wealth is independence.
Defined as?
Control. Control over your time, control over your schedule, the autonomy to pursue things you care about, whether intellectual or personal, without feeling rushed or pressured. It's doing life on your terms.
And getting there requires rethinking how we view savings, right?
Yeah.
We talk about saving money, but there's this kind of counterintuitive idea you mentioned, that there's no such thing as unspent money.
That's a really profound shift in perspective, I think. Every single dollar you earn gets spent. Every one.
How so?
Well, when you buy a coffee, you spend it on caffeine, right?
Yeah.
When you put that dollar into savings, you're still spending it. You're spending it on something intangible, but incredibly valuable. Freedom. Independence. Every dollar saved buys you a little piece of your future back. It's like a claim check on the future. It buys you options. And every dollar of debt, well, that's a piece of your future that someone else now owns.
You can see this play out so clearly when you compare certain athletes. Like, let's take Antoine Walker. NBA player, made, what, over $100 million?
$108 million over 12 seasons, yeah. And Walker definitely spent his money. He apparently had, like, 6 or 7 luxury cars at a time.
Just cycling through them?
Yeah, constantly replacing them if he saw a nicer one. And he supported this huge entourage, maybe 30 friends and family members.
And the result?
5 years after he thought he was set for life. Filed for bankruptcy, he made generational wealth, literally, but ended up losing complete control over his life, his decisions, everything handed over to a judge.
Okay, now contrast that with John Urschel. Played, what, 3 seasons in the NFL? Earned way less, right? Near the minimum for a pro athlete.
Yeah, much less income. But Urschel saved almost all of it, the vast majority. He retired from football pretty early, not because he had to, but because he wanted to.
What did he do then?
Went back to school, got his PhD in mathematics from MIT. Now he's a professor. He kept complete control the whole time.
And here's the interesting thing. Why do we tend to admire Urschel's path more than Walker's? It's not just because Walker went broke, is it? Even if Walker had just, lived large but stayed solvent, I feel like we'd still find Urschel more admirable. Why?
Because fundamentally, people admire control, independence. Urschel had the power to choose what he wanted to do, when he wanted to do it, regardless of outside pressure. Walker, despite that massive income, became a slave to expectations, to his spending. He lost the power to choose.
That's such a powerful idea. Poverty isn't just lack of money, it can be lack of control. How does that connect to the idea of debt? Not just financial debt, but social debt.
Ah, yes. That leads us right into this concept of social debt,
Right.
which is basically the hidden liability that crops up when spending money starts influencing what people think of you, but in ways you don't actually want. It creates pressure, obligations, sometimes even danger.
The story of Frank Lucas, the drug dealer, is a pretty extreme example of this, right? He apparently built this huge criminal empire by staying completely under the radar for years.
He did. His success was built on being quiet. invisible almost. But eventually, that drive for external status, for showing off, it just overwhelmed his common sense, his self-preservation. He felt he had to outshine everyone.
So he shows up at the big Ali Frazier fight in 1971.
Wearing this absolutely enormous, incredibly expensive, I think it was a $100,000 chinchilla coat, sitting right near Frank Sinatra. Peak performance, you might say.
But self-defeating.
Totally self-defeating. He got the attention, all right. But it came with this colossal hidden cost. Lucas himself wrote later something like, "I came to the fight an unknown man. I left that fight a marked man."
Meaning?
Law enforcement, who'd basically ignored him before, suddenly took notice. Who is this guy who can afford a coat like that? That attention, that visibility, that was the social debt that led directly to his downfall, his arrest.
That's the extreme end, obviously. Yeah. But this applies to regular people too, right? You mentioned something about there being a sort of sweet spot for money, after which it becomes almost painful.
Yeah, there seems to be a point of diminishing or even negative returns. There's this old idea, the Art-Schultz rule, originally from medicine. Small doses stimulate, moderate doses inhibit, large doses kill. Applied here, it suggests too much money, or maybe more accurately, too much displayed money, becomes a social liability. Think about lottery winners. Why do so many go broke?
Impulse spending. Bad investments.
Sometimes. But often it's because they're just overwhelmed, socially exploited. They lose all their privacy. Friends, family, long-lost cousins suddenly feel entitled to a piece of the pie. That pressure bankrupts them emotionally and financially.
And you hear echoes of this in the pro sports world too, right? That NBA rookie insight.
Right. The rookie who said players often go broke not from buying one giant mansion for themselves, but because they feel this social obligation to buy, like, 5 modest houses for cousins and old high school buddies.
It's the cost of those expectations.
Right.
The social debt.
Exactly. And then there's the debt you accrue just from your own heightened expectations about your stuff. Like, if you buy a brand new top-of-the-line car, you expect perfection, right?
Yeah, you probably baby it.
But that expectation makes you hypersensitive to every tiny scratch, every little ding, every speck of dirt. Suddenly, this expensive car is causing you way more angst and pain than some cheap, beat-up car ever would.
The thing that was supposed to bring happiness becomes a constant source of low-level irritation. That's stress.
Yeah.
That's a kind of social debt, too.
It absolutely is. And that brings us back to Thoreau's point, which is still so relevant. The true cost of a thing isn't just the money. It's the amount of life you have to exchange for it.
The worry, the attention, the social fallout.
All of it. Wealth without independence, without control, it's really just a unique kind of poverty.
Okay, so if the status game is a trap we want to avoid, and independence is the real prize, how do we actually start building that independence? It's got to be a spectrum, yeah? Not everyone can just quit their job tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. It's a ladder you climb gradually. Every single dollar you manage to save moves you up a rung. We need to recognize these key milestones along the way because they represent real, tangible freedom.
So what are some of those early, maybe more realistic levels of independence?
Yeah.
The ones that give you back some control without needing, a 9-figure net worth.
Well, okay, think about level 3. That's where maybe you fully support yourself financially, but you're easily replaceable at work. Your boss pretty much dictates your entire day. That's baseline survival for many.
Right. Common situation.
But then a really wonderful and I think entirely realistic goal for a lot of people is reaching something like level 7.
What's level 7?
That's having enough savings plus marketable skills that you can look at a truly awful situation, a horrible boss, a toxic workplace, a soul-crushing commute, and just say no without panicking about paying rent next month.
You bought the ability to avoid major life misery.
Exactly. That's huge. And then maybe level 10, that's often seen as the first true stage of financial independence.
Which means
enough savings tucked away to cover all your essential expenses for maybe a year, maybe more, even with no income. At level 10, you can weather almost any storm, job loss, major economic downturn with pretty high odds of landing on your feet. That's where the power dynamic really shifts in your favor.
Okay. And the path to getting to level 7 or level 10 without falling into that social debt trap, that's what you call quiet compounding. And it sounds kind of countercultural, almost the opposite of the whole hustle and grind thing.
It definitely requires patience. There's that great line from Lao Tzu, nature is not in a hurry, yet everything is accomplished. That's the spirit. It's about silent, steady growth, built without fanfare, without needing applause. That quiet accumulation is the ultimate financial superpower, I think.
So quiet compounding basically means using money as a tool purely for your own benefit instead of using it as a yardstick to measure yourself against others or for public performance.
Precisely. It really emphasizes using internal benchmarks, not external ones. The key question you have to keep asking yourself is this: would I be happy with this result, this savings rate, this investment, this purchase, if literally no one else could see it? If I couldn't show it off or compare it to my neighbors?
That's a tough question to answer, honestly, sometimes.
It is. And it also means accepting that quick wealth is often fragile wealth. Money that comes easy, while it tends to go easy too, it encourages impulsivity, maybe regret.
Whereas slow and steady.
Longevity is the magic ingredient in finance. Often the fastest way to get genuinely durably wealthy is actually to go slow. When you stop performing for an audience, your focus naturally shifts further out, towards the long term. That slower, more deliberate pace builds endurance. It builds resilience against the inevitable bumps in the road. You stop feeling like you're in a rush because you realize time is actually your greatest ally.
That really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Our deep dive today seems to show that the biggest trap is that external comparison game. It saddles you with social debt, turning the very things you own into liabilities that end up controlling you.
Right. And the key to breaking free is consciously using your savings to purchase independence, actual control over your time, your schedule, your choices.
And doing that requires that kind of radical self-acceptance C.S. Lewis was talking about, right?
Yeah.
You have to actively break the spell of the inner ring.
You do. Breaking it means finding genuine satisfaction, genuine appreciation for the social ring, the financial reality you're actually in right now, not the next one you're chasing.
So as you go about your day after listening to this, here's maybe one final thought to chew on. You tend to become a reflection of the 3 or 4 people you socialize with most consistently. Think about that.
It's true. If their definition of happiness absolutely requires expensive tastes, 5-star vacations, constant upgrades, your own financial expectations are likely going to drift towards that same costly lifestyle. It's almost unavoidable. But if your chosen circle finds genuine joy in simpler things, maybe hiking, reading, just talking about life around a kitchen table or a picnic blanket, then your own sense of material happiness can stay much more grounded, much more achievable.
So realizing that means your social environment, the people you choose to be around.
It can have just as big an impact on your financial freedom, your actual happiness, as how much money you physically earn.